Is this going to bug you?
No. I'm just going to talk into it and they're going to hear me. I'll contribute.
Is this basically the same roster as yesterday, or are some of you?
There's some different days. Because yesterday was the small one.
Wait, what? What a healthy breakfast.
Oh my god.
I'm going to have brownies.
They're for the soccer team.
What?
Sorry, guys.
Okay, you cannot do that. That's against the rules. Yeah, the rules is if you don't have enough for everyone, you can't have enough for yourself.
Okay, Michaela Cheney's our manager. She misses Browns. We're going to get a dub.
I don't understand the thing you're saying. You're called brownies.
Sorry.
Logan, I'm in soccer.
All right, here we go. There should be. Okay. Give my brownie to someone of your choice. I apologize for choosing a light green writing on a white background. That says First Continental Congress. No. We have to put this in context. What happened yesterday was the Boston Massacre, which led to the finding not guilty of most of the British soldiers. So the British thought that was a kind act. We will respond in kind. And they rescinded most of the Townsend Acts, but they did keep one just to remind the colonists who's in charge. And what the colonists did was become angry that the British kept one, not happy that they rescinded 4. You kept 1. And they dumped tea in the harbor. And they made this harbor into the biggest cup of tea in history. Right. So the British responded with, do you remember? The Intolerable Acts, right? Gloves are off. No more meetings. You're going to clean up that tea. We're going to create Canada. We're going to, rescind your rights, but grant the French Catholics' rights.
Is that one where the British had to move into the colonists' house?
Yes, the New Quartering Act. Okay, very good. Okay, so now it's your move, colonists. Your move. And here it was. The response of the colonists. I shouldn't call them British colonists because that ship has sailed. We're not quite where we call ourselves Americans yet, but what we know we're not is you, British. We don't quite know who we are yet, but we know who we ain't, you. And so look again. Here is another attempt to create a we. This is an attempt to create a new we. Let's have a very important meeting. All colonies are invited, and all went except Georgia. I don't know why. Maybe somebody in here could figure out why. Why didn't Georgia send a delegation? And they met. Where did they meet? Philly? I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that either. Jeez.
Are you a history?
Hey, but at least I admit it and I don't pretend I know it.
Are you like in percent?
Yeah.
Percent.
So, and what do? They don't like the Intolerable Acts, and they said so. Hey, those Intolerable Acts, they're meanie. You British. Now, this is actually more significant than you think. What is going on here is equivalent to if a terrorist group engaged in a terrorist act and the people, let me give you an example. 9/11, right? Awful act. You would hope that people around the world would condemn what happened on 9/11. But there were some countries who applauded it, endorsed it. And that, of course, made the U.S. mad at them. What do you mean you endorse it? That's what this is. We're with you, Boston. We're with you. We're with what you did. We don't like the Intolerable Acts. We're with you. Okay, guess here.
It was in Philly, and they didn't go because they were facing attacks from the Creek Indians and the British.
Oh, so they were a little busy with those darn Creek Indians. Okay, very good. All right. Well, that'll come to a head in a little bit here. Very good. Okay, let's keep going. They're gonna again boycott. And you might be thinking, how many times can you boycott? If you're not buying anything, now are you really not gonna buy anything? And then next time you're really not gonna buy anything? Yeah! That's right! We're really not gonna buy your stuff. And finally, let's just be ready. Let's just be ready, just in case. Hey, each colony, raise your own army. But states don't have armies. There is no Wisconsin Army today. There's this thing called the Wisconsin National Guard, but they don't call it an army. By the way, that's intentional. They intentionally do not call Wisconsin National Guard the Wisconsin National Army. No, we don't call it that, and you'll understand why in a bit. What they did call them were militias. Now, when you think militia, what do you think? What comes to mind?
Military.
Yeah, military, maybe former military, maybe Minutemen, very good. Small, very good. Outnumbered, absolutely. Are they well trained? They probably shoot on weekends, right? Maybe not the most equipped, not necessarily paid. This is sort of a volunteer thing, part-timer thing. Okay, but let's just be ready. Let's just be ready. What do you need for a militia? Be obvious here. You need people, you need guns, you need maybe weapons. Okay, very good. And this is the story of one militia. Okay? So this is the story of the Massachusetts militia. You know, when you move, that whole camera shakes. So people watching this video later probably have a headache now.
Sorry, lady.
Sorry, crazy lady. Okay. So once again, remember, Boston is ground zero. There are thousands of British soldiers in Boston militia. Now you need guns. You can't put the guns in Boston. That's crazy. The British will find them. There's too many British soldiers there, so we gotta hide them. And so the Massachusetts militia hid their guns in a little town called Concord. This is, let's see, this is 3 miles, 3.6, looks like about 20 miles away. Looks like about a day's ride away in a little town called Concord. That's where the Massachusetts militia hid their guns. I loves my guns, and my dog, and my truck. Well, the British had spies. If ever you watch Netflix, there's actually a really good show called Turn. Any of you ever heard of it? It's a really good book and a pretty good Netflix. It's like 2-3 seasons. It's about spies during the Revolutionary War, and it's actually pretty good. I watched it. It's pretty good. So anyway, the British had spies. They found out about the guns. The British found out about the guns. So they're going to go get the guns. They're going to go get them. And that's what this red line is. This red line represents the British marching to Concord to get the guns. But the Americans had spies too. Like one guy who got on his horsey and he rode ahead of the British. And he was saying something. That's right, Paul Revere, the ride of Paul Revere. He was going to tell the people in Concord, hide the guns because the British are going to be here soon. The British are coming, the British are coming. Okay, very good. So here go the British. And they march, and they march, and they march, and they get to a little place called Lexington. And something happened there.
Someone.
What happened? Well, some of you are going to say, well, the British fired first. And others are going to say, nah, the Americans fired first. I'll just let you decide what happened at Lexington. But something happened. There was a small skirmish in the grassy fields of Lexington, but the Americans quickly retreat. A few casualties. Onward go the British. And when they get to Concord, what? Do they find anything? No, the guns are gone. But the British know they're there somewhere, and so they come up with an interesting solution. Let me pause for a second here. Let's pretend that there is a known gunman in the school, And so the cops arrive, and what they do is they call in a napalm bomb and they destroy the school. And they high-five each other as they go to the bar for a beer. Good work, everyone. We got the guy. Right? Did they get the guy? Uh-huh. Good work. Do we need to state the obvious here? Or do you all understand why that isn't good work? Okay, good. We get it. But that's what the British did. We know the guns are here somewhere. Let's burn the town down. Let's burn the whole town down. And that's what they did. And they high-fived each other on the way back. Good work, everyone. But gee, that seems like the British were kind of abusive, which would seem to fit into the narrative of the Patriots calling for independence. You idiot British, you fed right into what the Patriots are trying to convince most Americans of, and that is you're meanie heads. It's sort of mean to kill people and burn a town to the ground. That's kind of mean. Now, on the other hand, could you see why the British did what they did? Right? There are guns here somewhere, and those guns are going to shoot us. Better to destroy them. Later on in this class, hey, what am I about to do? Very good. Later on in this class, we will study the Vietnam War. And what the American Army had to do was go into any hamlet in Vietnam and identify the Viet Cong. What they just did was they burned the whole town. There. Now, if you guys are hiding any weapons, you're not going to use them anymore. And by the way, as the American Army would retreat, if suddenly the village behind them that was burning suddenly started to explode, they knew they got the weapons that were being hit because they were detonating as the fire reached bombs or whatever. Okay, so they burned Concord to the ground, and now they're turning around to march back to Boston. It's been a long day, and now these blue lines become important. And this interesting thick red line suddenly is a thing. The thicker, the faster the British were running. It's an organized march. La, 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 la. Connect the dots. La, 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 la. Stop attacking us. We're getting attacked by sniper fire. The Americans did this interesting thing called hit and run. Hit and run, right? You don't meet the British in an open field like they fought in European wars, right? The British operated under rules of warfare. Let's think about the rules of warfare for a second here. What's wrong with taking planes and crashing them into the Twin Towers? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with it? You're killing people. So killing people is wrong? So the American military was wrong to kill Nazis during World War II? Nazis. Nazis. Were the Americans wrong? Is it wrong to kill during a war? I mean, I know you can find an exception, but generally, what's the general view? Is killing during a war warranted? I'm not saying it's good, but
Yes.
okay.
As long as it's people who are actually like fighting.
Okay, so now you're creating a rule. You are now creating a rule. When the American Army killed Nazis during World War II, that's justifiable because it was a war. The Nazis were the aggressor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But 9/11, those are innocent civilians. But what you've just done is created a rule. The way we do it is acceptable. The way you do it is not. Do you think that when the U.S. informed the world and Al-Qaeda, the group responsible for 9/11, that Al-Qaeda was like, you're right. Billy, we can't crash planes into Twin Towers anymore. It's against the rules. And Billy's like, oh, my goodness. If only we had known. Rules. No. Billy doesn't accept the American version of rules. All right, let's try World War I. What did the Germans do during World War I that violated the rules? Does anyone know? That's right, mustard gas, which is a nasty gas. The Germans used mustard because the French kept digging these annoying things called trenches. And when you shoot a bullet, the bullet goes straight, but the French are down here. The bullet goes over them. If only there were a weapon that would sink. Mustard gas. It's heavier than air. So you launch the mustard gas, it sinks. The French say, "Le damn it, get out." Now you shoot them with la machine gun. Okay, but wait, it was against the rules. There were rules about you can't use mustard gas. One of the rules that the British operated on at this time was hiding, as in don't. You don't hide. You fight in open fields. You and the enemy meet in some open field, and then your officers ride out on horseback, and then they each take each other's gloves off, and they slap each other in the face, and then they ride back, and then they moon each other, and then they shoot arrows at each other, and then they send in the infantry, and then they send it. That's the way you fight a war. And the Americans weren't going with it. Well, no, we're not going to fight that way. If we fight your way, we'll lose. Why would we do that? Why would we fight your way? So what the Americans did is something that they learned from Native Americans. They wore camouflage, not red with a white X. That's what the British wore, right? You're an American and you're hiding in some trees, and the British are riding by wearing red with a white X, and you're standing next to Tommy, like, "Tommy, where do we aim?" "Oh yeah, I know where to aim now. The white X." I mean, imagine the British are basically wearing a uniform that's a target. You know, they're walking along the road. They're walking along the road, and the Americans kept hitting them with sniper fire. And the British would chase them, and the Americans would disappear, and then they'd get back on the road. And by this time, the commanding officer of the British were like, "Run away, run, see you in Boston. I'm on my own," right? And off they went. And now, is it on? It's on? Oh, yeah, it's on. By the way, that's a test question. It's on? Oh, yeah, it's on. That is the correct answer. Another option will be, yes, it is on. That's wrong. The correct answer to this weird question, is on, is, oh, yeah, knowing nod, is on. Is on. I love how some of you are writing that down. Very, very proud of you.
Yeah, go eat.
But I mean, now we have open conflict. We now have British soldiers shooting and killing Americans, although you could say that happened in the Boston Massacre, but these Americans are militia, right? It's on. We're fighting now. But there was still hope. There was still the belief that let's just chill. We have not declared independence at this time. There's been no declaration of independence. A little bit of a misunderstanding here. Let's just chill, argued some people. Okay. Any questions here? Let's keep going. But what we are going to do for this last little bit here is we're going to say in the coming conflict, the British had certain advantages. And if it's a British advantage, it's an American disadvantage. And the Americans had certain advantages. And if it's an American advantage, it would be a British disadvantage. For example, I'm taller than you. I'll say that a different way. I'm shorter. You're shorter than me, right? My advantage is that I'm taller than you. Your disadvantage is that you're shorter than me. In essence, it's the same thing, okay? So what I want to do is just give you a minute. Can you come up with 2 or 3 advantages for both sides? And then if you want to compare with your neighbor and see if you two can grow that list to 6 or 7, that'd be fabulous. How's the junior skid looking? Is it good?
Is it fire?
Sure.
What does that mean?
Good.
Fire means good?
Yeah.
We get the job.
You got it? You got it. There's talent. There's talent. You got the potential. I can tell you the senior skid's pretty good.
So you're lying.
Pretty good.
We got it.
I'm excited for that one.
We got it.
It's pretty good.
Mhm.
Did you want to just compare with your neighbor just to see if you thought of something she didn't, and now you can expand your list? Maybe. Go ahead. That involves chatting.
We got nothing.
What is your advantages? I'm giving myself dreadlocks, by the way.
Imperial is British, right?
Probably. Okay.
They had their guns already.
I just put better weapons.
Because
Like better weapons.
Probably have superior.
their advantage was they were marching with weapons to a place
So there's
where there was guns hidden.
Well,
People didn't have
I mean, you don't know that. I mean, it happens to be true, but that's something you probably assume. I mean, the British are soldiers. These guys are militia.
that their guns were already
You
ready.
learned that today. Militia is
You know,
a
the other guns
part-time
are done.
soldier.
I didn't know.
Did you say that they have guns?
I didn't know that like they were.
You say you didn't know that one more time. What?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Did you just say? Oh my God. All right, let's come up with a list. So you're making two columns here: American advantages / British disadvantages. Same list. British advantages / American disadvantages. Same list, right? Anyone want to start us off? What's a good one? What's a good American or British advantage / disadvantage? Go ahead.
A British advantage is that they're well funded.
Yeah, much better funded than the American. What funding? Right? Wars are expensive. What funding mechanism does the American ragtag army have? Now that will be addressed. While the Americans are fighting, Benjamin Franklin goes on a little fishing tour to find money, and he finds money. He finds money, which sort of leads to an interesting history for that group that lends him the money. But that's a story for another. So very good. Funding. Advantage, British. More.
The Americans know how to finish fights, so they know how to react to it.
Okay, I think you have identified something there. We'll call it home field advantage. Home field advantage, Americans. Right? They've lived here. These are British soldiers. They stay in Boston. They don't want to go out there in the wild. It's scary out there. Also, home field advantage, there's something about motive, right? That might be the biggest advantage of all. Why is the British soldier fighting?
Because he was told.
Yeah, he's told to. He's paid to. It's his duty. Is that I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but is that a motive to fight real hard? Is that a reason to like maybe sacrifice your life? And by the way, when the British had a manpower shortage, does anyone know? I bet somebody in here knows. What did they do to come up with a supplementary military force? Because they didn't have enough soldiers.
They increased the pay.
What? Well, that is true. That is true. Anybody else have another one? They hired mercenaries. The Germans, exactly. Germany wasn't a thing back then, so they were from a specific place called Hesse. They were the Hessians, right? Well, again, if you're a German, if you're a Hessian, why are you fighting? Money, which is fine. It's the American way. But I don't know about sacrificing your life for the cause. Now, why is the American fighting? Freedom! Right? Picture Mel Gibson, Braveheart, riding around on the horse teeth. They should take our lives, but they never will take our freedom! That's a motive. That's a motive to fight. Or how about this? That's the British Army, and that's my farm, and that's my dog. I am going to fight hard to protect my dog and my family.
But my dog.
Anybody
else? Advantage? Go ahead.
The American soldiers like were hard to identify because they didn't have like uniforms.
They did though. They did. That was a rule that the British went with, and the Americans went with. right? The American Army wore blue.
They were fighting a defensive war.
Yeah, defensive war, which is advantage, right? Think about what the British have to do. The British have to capture. The Americans don't have to capture anything. They just can't lose real bad. Don't lose real bad. Just hold on. I mean, half of what Washington did was flee. Washington would lose another battle, but he'd never get caught. And he would just flee. They don't have to capture a town. Just don't get caught. The British have to capture. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Navy?
They were supported. So
The Americans were supported?
By like people.
Very good. A lot of American had a lot of allies because a lot of people hated Britain, right? Big man on campus sort of thing. Top of the totem pole, knock them down. They didn't love America. They just hated Britain.
Where did the Indian tribes stand?
Very good question. Where did the Indian tribes side? Most sided with Britain. Most sided with Britain, which would become an interesting story after U.S. became a thing. And that was, all right, Indians, you picked wrong. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right? The native tribes were fearful that an independent America would expand westward. And they were right. Okay. How about Navy? British Navy?
Yeah.
American Navy? What Navy? Well, there was a little Navy.
The skirmish.
Yeah, exactly. The Americans had a Navy. What the British are going to do is blockade, and what the Americans are going to try and do is break through the blockade. Okay, so there was a Navy, but not much. There she is. Okay. Yeah, I think what we've come up with is fine. Sufficient, yes. Any questions? Having said all that, at the beginning of the war, most neutral observers thought the Americans have no chance. You have no chance. The British have never lost a significant colony. Never. It's never happened before. Well, there's got to be a first time. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Right. I'm giving you all this time intentionally. I mean, basically from now until October the 10th, I'm going to take about half the time, and then the other half's going to be, all right. It's on you now, right? You've got a couple Kias that are due. They're still due tomorrow. Okay. Now, what time they're due, I'll make it fair for everyone. I'll make them due at, say, 3 o'clock. I still have to work. So they're due for everyone, 3 bells, okay? 2 Kias. Plus, you've got a blue book essay that you could work on. Plus, you have these summaries for Lindy. Plus, you've got a trial Tuesday, right? Who's primarily responsible for the Indian genocide. Okay? So there are things in your little wheelhouse here that you could be working on. Would it be in anyone's interest if I went and retrieved a Chromebook porta potty lab? Is that, yes, okay.
How you doing, man?
Okay, so I will try and do that. Otherwise, you're on your own. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.